Okay.
Uh-oh, you're going to catch me chewing.
So I think I'm supposed to moderate. I have to admit that after listening to the two other presenters, I realized that I am the one with the least knowledge and expertise out of the whole panel. So I guess I view this as much more of an interactive thing of everybody to share what they're doing and ask questions of one another. I've learned some stuff just off of this listening. And one of the things I think we're going to explore pretty quickly is whether we should go straight to QuickBooks ourselves and what that would do for us. Because right now I keep most of my records on my computer. I upload them. We have a cloud archive that I upload our transactions and other things to so they can be accessible by others. Bill's our president. He has access to the bank account. Although things have gotten a little bit more difficult for us with this kind of double verification, where if you want to access, you have to get they have to send you a text or check your email. So we're trying to work through those kinds of issues now of how we can have more than just me have other people aside from myself have easier access. So I guess maybe the easiest way to do this is open it up if anybody has anything they want to say or any questions or talk about how they're doing it, and try and benefit from the crowd expertise that we have here.
Hi, I'm Diane Watson. I had asked a very basic question when we were all together about whether there is indeed a difference between a nonprofit and a not-for-profit. I live in a 55 plus community, and the entire community is the village. And at one point, there came up a project about having handicap access to the condos and applying for a grant. And the answer I was given back is we couldn't apply for a grant because we were a not-for-profit. And then I hear all these people that are nonprofits applying for grants and, getting them. I thought some people were saying in the beginning, they're synonymous. And then somebody I thought said, no, there is a distinction between charitable and non-charitable. Can anybody answer that basic question for me?
I'll jump into that. I think the answer that Ava gave was just that there are, the IRS has different classifications, but I would guess that most of the villages, if not all of the villages, are 501c3 organizations, which means that we are, not for profit. People do use the terms interchangeably, so it becomes very difficult to understand if there is any difference. But as far as applying for grants goes, it's up to the grantor to decide who's eligible. So most grants are made to 501c3 nonprofit organizations, but not all of them. Some grantors are happy to make them to commercial enterprises as well. So it really depends on who's giving you the money. But if it's a nonprofit organization if it's an organization that characterizes itself as nonprofit, I suspect it's going to be a 501c3 that has the ability. It's not a 501c3?
No, it's not. It's
how it's organized?
Homeowners Association. And when I asked that question a couple of years ago, in relation to trying to apply for a grant, they said, no, we can't, because based on when the community was formed, we were designated as a not-for-profit. And so we couldn't do it because we couldn't get extra money in for whatever reason. And so my mind doesn't work about the financial stuff, but I'm seeing as problems are arising as the community is getting older, and we need to have some monies coming in because everything is in the reserves for when things break down and all this sort of stuff. So I am just not certain where we are, and was hoping, I'm getting information, sort of like Ross. You can't go wrong joining these groups like this to hear some little tidbit, but it has to go to somebody else. And the other thing that hit home today is everything shouldn't be on one person in case that one person gets hit by the bus.
Right.
So, those are things that I'll take back to the board. But
Well, good luck
Yes.
finding out about how your association is
how
organized.
we're designated, yeah. So it's a tax thing, though, that not-profit or non-for-profit is a tax designation then?
Correct. It's basically, right. They're not shareholders in a 501c3.
Well,
Scott,
well,
I
there's
think-
there's a difference between homeowners associations are looked at quite differently. And so my recommendation would be, which I just went through with our kind of budding village, is to reapply as a not-for-profit charitable organization, not as a homeowners association. That's a totally different entity. So that's why you're probably getting rejected. So, I mean, it's a real pain in the neck. It took 3 months to get all of our ducks in a row with both the feds and the state and the county, Fairfax County. So, but it's worth it. Now we can go and apply for grants.
And Scott, what was it that you reapplied for as a not-for-profit?
As a not-for-profit charitable organization. You're not a foundation, you're not a homeowner, you can't be a homeowners association. I'm almost sure of that.
Okay.
This is Margie. One of the things, Diane, is that a lot of places that you apply for discounts for require that you present them with your 501c3 papers.
Correct, yeah.
That's right.
And it's only a one pager, but we had to, I'm East Rock Creek Village in the district, and we had to get a reaffirmation. After so many years, you get a reaffirmation of your status. I think it's 5 years. And then that gets you for another 5 years. So,
Yeah.
The feds keep track of this. I want to make a couple of comments. We're very much like you, Ross. Well, Mount Pleasant, and we're both all volunteer villages. And I've been the treasurer for more years than I care to think. And I don't have a financial background, but I have a big time software background. So the computer stuff is not a mystery to me. It's so important to have everything automated, and so important now that the tools are there that it'd be cloud automated. But what I haven't done, and I need to, now that tax season is over, is document much more, as people have commented. The best practices, by the way, big or small, is that you have 3 people look at every transaction. The person who does, the person who asks for it, the person who does it, and the person who checks it. And often also even small organizations require checks over a certain size be signed by 2 people. But now that we're doing so much through the bank and online, that makes it that much harder. Anyway, I also want to recommend, we don't have a bookkeeper. I'm the bookkeeper, and we only have 10 or 12 transactions a month. So it's not that big a deal. But I have a couple of questions, but I'm going to say one thing and then I have a couple of questions. I use efile4biz.com to cut my 1099 R.
Yeah.
And for $12, it's worth it. Among other things, the red part of the form can't be done on paper.
Yeah.
The government stopped that. Everything, it has to be done online. So, for $12 to cut the few, if you pay anybody over $600, you have to cut them a 1099 NEC, it's now called, non-employee compensation, not an R. I misspoke. But anyway, it's really great. You do it online. It's really easy. You pay with your bank card and so. But my question is, when we get a grant and 99.9% of it is a pass-through to professional services, that is the people that we're filing the 1099 NECs for, is that really income?
Ooh.
So that's my question.
I wish it wasn't. Wouldn't have to do a 1099 EZ.
You got it.
Yeah, yeah,
Up until this year, our grant from the district government was small enough that
us
we
too,
didn't need to.
us
But
too. Us
Now
too.
they've bumped it up. So for those of you who aren't in the district, most of the running of the villages, the smaller ones, is covered by our government grant.
Yeah. It's $50,000 this year. So it's
This year
It's
it's
a-
50,000, but in the past it's been 25,000.
right, right. I mean, and before it was small enough that we didn't, between that and the membership, we didn't exceed the threshold.
Right.
That that you had to pass over to, do a 1099. I mean,
Ross, I'm gonna ask you for your email so we can talk about this, because you and I are in the same leaky boat.
great. It's rhammory@hotmail.com, RHAMORY.
Thank you. The other thing, for those of you who don't live in the district, the district has so many forms and different times of filing and everything. It's a real pain in the neck, and it really needs to be documented well, so that you
Yeah.
keep track of your That's another thing, it didn't quite get mentioned, but your calendars of paying all of your government obligations can be really annoying.
Can I just ask a quick question about all this? I'm from Glover Park Village, and
Oh,
we're a nonprofit, very small, volunteer managed village. And we are, of course, the recipients also of this marvelous grant, but it does not blindside you, but it does give you a little bit of a different view of how we should, how the village needs to be managed. And I was just wondering, does anybody know of a treasurer floating around? We're looking for a treasurer. And it's hard, we can't seem to find one. It's something that I think need. So treasurer and bookkeeper, right? There's no, you shouldn't be running a village without both of those, right? Is that my understanding?
Well,
Oh, we run it with one. That's me.
yeah.
And what are you, a treasurer or a bookkeeper?
Yes.
Both. I think it's.
Would
I
you
think
come and work for us, please?
I think it's actually a matter of semantics, and also it's one of those that it's situational. It's who you have, what work they're willing to do. I mean, we're at this thing. When I took over 2.5 years ago, we were our budget was around $30,000, and everything was handwritten check. And so it's such a small amount. Then as it starts growing and getting bigger, like you say, with the DOCL grant and the other things, all of a sudden you wind up having all of this, having to match transactions and reduce them to a certain size and attach them to an email and get them sent and audited and all of those kinds of things. So, I perform all those functions. And it doesn't, I mean, we reach this cost versus benefit issue of, right now I pay a bookkeeper just as it's an outside audit. I send the transactions to her. She loads them up into QuickBooks, gives us monthly reports. If we need a special report, we can get one there. Bill reviews the major expenditures that we make because they're DOCL. They're all,
But we keep talking about expenditures. One of the things, and sorry,
That's a good point.
Susan's on the call, and so I want to give her credit. Helpful Village is the software we use, and someone else other than me keeps track of the income from members and donations, etc., and runs it through helpful village, which is aside from QuickBooks, and we use a different accounting system, it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
So they're in both, but you know, we've certainly split the duties so that
Mhm.
one person is taking care of the donational income, the membership income,
Right.
whatever you want to call it, and someone else, that's me, is taking care of the expenses. So
Right.
you can't forget the income part of it.
Oh, no.
That's a big deal. I mean, the expenses are, you know, obviously important. You got to pay the bills. Somebody mentioned this morning, you know, you got to keep track of your passwords. Our list of passwords of all the places that we have accounts is 4 pages long. I mean, I have to have it printed and it's backed up in several places because we have so many accounts between Verizon and the district government, etc. You know, I don't see how anybody could get along without a spreadsheet of your accounts. I'll be quiet.
I want to just dive in and try to answer Holly's question about treasurer versus bookkeeper in a little different way. I think one thing that Ross and I are trying to do in our village, and it's interesting, you know, we have all 3 of the volunteer managed DC villages on this
Yeah.
call,
Yeah.
you know, dominating this. So you know, for the sake of the rest of you who aren't DC volunteer managed villages, we'll get on to other questions, I'm sure, in a second. But you know, I think what both Ross and I are really intent on as we sort of finish our terms here is how do we make a volunteer managed village as easily managed as possible? What supports do people in these key positions like treasurer need? And so I think one reason that I think Ross and I have both found today's session so useful is because we have found some things that may make it easier for
Mhm.
you know, the whole QuickBooks on the cloud solution is terrific.
Yeah.
And you know, the treasurer is a position that's defined in our bylaws. So we have a treasurer, but what supports does the treasurer need, I think, is the question. And some treasurers use bookkeepers, but as technology marches on, maybe treasurers won't all need bookkeepers.
Yep.
You know, if we have it on the cloud and so forth. So that's, I don't know if that's helpful, Holly, but that's kind of how
Yeah.
I'm looking at it.
Thank you. That's a good way to say it. I'm not actually doing the books, just trying to figure out how we make sure that we're doing things that we need to do and that we have the right people to do them. Just trying to make that a priority this year.
I see Robert has his hand raised, Robert Thurston, in the upper left-hand corner of my screen.
Good morning, everyone. I'm a little, I guess I'm minuscule, so I'm probably a little too small for this group. But I would ask if you would kind of remember the situation I find myself in is recently taking over Neighbors Helping Neighbors of College Park, discovered that we have never filed taxes. Established in 2017. Trying to gather the information to do it. Fortunately, the good thing is there hasn't been a whole lot of activity, so there's not a whole lot of expenses and receipts. It's really just trying to figure out where the money came from so that we can properly report it. But just wanted to ask the question of if you recall that, do I just submit the 1023 and get the 990s as I can? Any suggestions on that at all? Like I said, there's not a whole lot of money. The only money that we really have received is grant service, operational grants from the city. So the good thing is we haven't received any, but as a new person coming in, I see all these opportunities to accept money and go after grants, but I don't want to do anything else that's going to complicate taxes until we get that straight. So any suggestions or opportunities there, I'd
Do
appreciate it.
you have your 501c3?
Yes, but it's in the not revoked status, but in the for failing to file for 3 consecutive years. It's
They're
on
not
hold.
I've handled this before for nonprofits, and what you simply do is you file all the 990s that you would have done each year and just send them en masse, especially if you are suspended and they're going to re-invoke your status.
So just use the address and mail them in as each year.
Yeah, or yes,
Okay.
or just do it as a packet with a letter explaining what you're doing. It's you know, if you're doing it by paper and you can do it electronically, so you have to. It's harder. I don't know how. I haven't done it electronically for past years, so I don't know if there's a way to do that or not.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah,
This is Mary
what
Jo, and
village do you
my
refer
only
to?
addition to this particular conversation is make sure that you keep a copy of your letter, right? And you know exactly where that copy is. In other words, you document everything you do, and I'm sure you would, but that's one of the sad lessons we've learned.
Mm.
Thank you.
Well, so back to my question, does anybody know, is the pass-through considered income? Is pass-through money on a grant considered income?
Yes, I mean, if you're in the situation that we're in where we receive our grant money from DACL, you know, it's up to you how you spend it. You know, if you spend it for exclusively on consultants, it's still income, it's still receipts that you have to book as income.
Okay.
And this
Yeah.
is Mary Jo, and I would say that we remember that Hyattsville, its project was funded with a pass-through $25,000 grant. So you might connect with Hyattsville through the information that I've given you, elsewhere, to get in contact with them and see what sort of documentation and reporting, they used.
Yeah, up till now, we're the same as Mount Pleasant, which is we're under 50,000. So it's just the postcard.
Yeah.
So it's not been an issue up till now.
I've actually been looking at the, spending a fair amount of time taking a look at the 990 EZ and working myself through it. And I feel actually a lot better about it after the lady that's the consultant today talked about how the Schedule O was your opportunity to really display what you're doing. Because I've been just trying to figure out what kind of level of detail I want to get to on that. And I think it's going to be a relatively high level of detail as we get into it. And it's been this for me, and I think it's probably going to be for everybody that's in the DC grant or environment here, because it's, that $50,000 really put us up into this other category. It's really been this is really an education right now of what kind of records I actually need to keep. I've got all the data. It's how it's broken out and how I can manipulate it easily to get it into this format now for the IRS. So, again, it's just like Bill said, we're trying to work this thing through. So we set up a good system now that, our successors are able to use. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to comment on that. I think there's a number of us that have been, given this marvelous grant, who are learning how to do what they require. And what do you think? Can we buy the model from you? I don't know why each village needs to recreate the wheel here.
Yeah.
Is there a way that we can share this expertise or, and have a fair, remuneration or something for it? Because, there's a number of us who have gotten this $50,000 grant, and we are, having to conform to what the grant requires for,
Right.
what I'm saying. I'm just trying to figure out why all of us little villages need to, do it sort of in our own closet? Can't we just share this information somehow?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly, I mean, we should. I really don't think we've got that level of expertise to share. I mean, because we're trying to slog our way through this right now. You know, and I mean, but I think that your point, I think, is exactly the right one, is, you know, how do we work among ourselves to get benefit from what each of us is learning and doing?
Yeah.
I mean, and I think we should start using things like asking Denise at Foggy Bottom as to who's the best at submitting the DACO grant submissions. I mean, you know, the monthly, and how do we all benefit from that? Or, you know, or what are lessons learned from each other? I mean, you know,
well, on one level here, I would just say, maybe this is what Mary Jo was going to say, but I think that's kind of the purpose of this kind of
right, it is.
You know, this is the Washington Area Village Exchange, right? So we're exchanging thoughts and ideas. And I think in DC, you know, with what we're doing with the DC villages, we do, you know, I see David every month on the on the Zoom screen, and you know, this might be something that we can just step aside and do amongst the 3 of our villages that are unstaffed, you know, volunteer villages, and just take an hour to have that discussion. And I think we could all benefit from that. So
that's what I was going to say, is that you have your own mini tutorial amongst the DC villages with some of those that are more sophisticated, have been doing it, you know.
That'd be super.
Take a Zoom meeting, you can do it by conference call. You know, it's really pretty. Yeah.
That'd be great. Who would organize that?
You know, we could organize it. So, you know.
So how should we communicate with you our information and you organize?
Without his permission, I put Ross's email on the chat.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I don't know if you want to use, I'll put my own email on the chat too, just for fairness, but I'm happy to organize that.
But do you think that there are others who just aren't on this wave call meeting right now? I mean, should this be something that you ask, you know, Denise or one of the others to help coordinate?
Well, these are the 3 villages that don't have staff happen to be on this call. And
I think
okay, that's good.
Yeah.
my sense is that we would do best by starting with amongst us and then seeing what questions we have.
Good.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we don't necessarily know the questions to ask. I think, you know, I mean, we've been doing well, but, you know, maybe there would be a way to actually have somebody, as you say, do a tutorial and then we might have questions.
It's been my understanding, though, that when we have the meetings with everybody, the 3 of us get overwhelmed with the bigger village. You know, they have so many more issues and so much more money to worry about, et cetera, then the 3 of us have so much in common. And by the way, everybody, we did our very first grant with the city was a cooperative grant with the 3 villages.
Yeah.
We're all volunteer, and Susan and David and I were around for that. I'm not sure you guys were, you know, it was a different set of people from each of the villages, but our very first grant from the city was a triple, which we administered the way Denise is administering it. We administered that grant for the 3 of us. So
I'm in Virginia, and I fall
into
into the same category as you guys in terms of being small and not like the others that talk a lot during the meetings. So I'd be interested if you ever get together to hear what you have to say, because as you speak, I can relate to you guys.
Okay.
I would agree.
Sure. Why not? Yeah.
Because I also hope that other jurisdictions get jealous about what DC has done and will follow suit, or at least we'll know what questions to ask to push the button. So
I know in the last national village conference, the one that celebrated Beacon Hill's 20-year anniversary, at the end, Barbara said, moving forward, it might not be a bad idea if we sort of talk to our area agencies on aging and get more involved or partnership with them about some things. And you guys having the interaction with DC already, you're ahead of the game compared to some of us. So I'm willing to learn whatever I can.
No reason not to join this group.
Okay.
You're essentially a nonprofit since nobody will give you a grant.
At the very basic level, that's for sure.
Okay, so that's terrific. So Bill and Ross are going to set this up for us. Or can I help? Let me know. But will you send out an email or something? Or
Well, I don't have everybody's emails, so maybe
I'm putting
the
my
first step
email
would
in
be
right
for you
now.
to send your emails to me, I guess, or so.
Okay, I'm not gonna be the only one who's interested in this. Pat Clark probably will want to join. So this is good. This is great. Thank you so much for doing this.
It occurs to me, you're running a very nice risk in my mind of becoming the self-help group, not just for DC villages who are getting this grant, but around other areas. There are a lot of villages in this boat who may have other, who weren't able to make this call. So one possibility is that there is an ongoing, group, or at least of contacts of people who are really very small and who really have to learn from the beginning. And again, they couldn't be here today and they'll have ongoing needs. So that's something to think about. And Wave would be happy to facilitate that. We might sponsor one more session, only we might even, one of our Zoom sessions, and we might limit it even more tightly to the very small, villages.
That's great, Mary Jo, and maybe we should work with you on putting this together.
Yeah.
Because you're
Sure,
right.
happy to, yeah.
It is a risk.
Well, the only caution is obviously not to make it too big.
Right.
I mean, we need to be able to have a real conversation back and forth and to write things down and, do some processes that, we can actually implement.
Working session.
Yeah.
Well, it may well be that the DC villages who have this rather acute need right now, should start just amongst yourselves
I
to
think
make
that's
sure that you
Yeah.
get your particular circumstance taken care of. And then you become more experienced. And then when we open it up to others, then you can say, well, we just went through that.
Right, exactly.
I think Mary Jo's statement there was right on the money. I mean, I think we have some immediate needs of trying to get through this income tax cycle and make sure we're set up to handle this as we go forward, and we share a common need here, and then we can expand out from there.
I have a question. Is anybody using some of these? There are different software packages developed for villages alone. I think one's called Helpful Village. Does that have anything to do with being a treasurer or being a bookkeeper? What is there anything in these packages that is helpful?
So we use Helpful Village. Susan Davis, who's on the call, can probably speak to it. It's very helpful for keeping track of transactions, but it is not an accounting system.
Right.
Okay.
It does not have an accounting system.
Okay.
So, but it is very helpful. You can tag things and you can, call them donations versus membership.
Right.
Although there can be some issues with that, but at any rate, and it's easy to do reports, and it accepts credit cards, and uses Stripe to do deposits, etc. But it is not an accounting system.
No, well, and it only handles income.
Yes.
There's no,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
it's not an
No.
accounting system. So all it does is take in income and classify it so you can get a report of who you got money, what you got money. Was it a
Oh,
donation?
I
Is
see.
it membership dues?
Right.
Separating it that way. And we use it for individuals to send out the tax exempt letters, when they have made donations, that sort of
And-
thing can be
yeah.
done on it.
And the other software package, which is the one that Wave is going to adopt, is called Run My Village, which is an offshoot of Club Express. And in fact, if you're
Yeah.
looking it up, you'd look at Club Express online. And again, it is the same, that it's got a very fine system for receiving money online for various things, either donations or registration, for events and stuff like that. But again, it's not an accounting system.
Where I hope to see Helpful Village or any of these systems being most helpful to us, when we've got it all squared away, is in the reports, though, because DACL, for example, the DC Department of Aging requires us to submit monthly reports and that indicate what we've done with the money, basically, how many home visits we've made, how many people we've seen, how many people have attended our programs, et cetera, et cetera. And Helpful Village, if we use it right, keeps track of that, and we can submit accurate reports. And that's a very important part of
Right.
the whole process.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because Glover Park Village is just transitioning into Helpful Village. And we're going to be getting training tomorrow and trying to, make sure that we use it properly. So I'll keep an eye out for that
Mhm.
capability.
Well, and that it's the same DC Village group, which is really pioneering on data standardization, working with Helpful Village. In fact, you're about to get a letter, coming out soon, because the National B2B is also interested in that. It's a big thing. I don't know. So one of my next to-dos is going to be to start pushing Run My Village to do that. But again, Wave is not a village, so we don't need to keep track of all that. But we want to support data standardization for aggregation and reporting. But Bill, what you said when you first started your comments gave me an idea that I think it is entirely plausible for customers to go to these two systems and ask them to consider creating an accounting module for it.
That's
It would
an
be a
excellent idea.
big-
Yeah.
if it would have to be very professionally run, and it would have to conform to all of the governance and reporting and other requirements. But to me, that could be a possibility. On the other hand, you have these established accounting software packages that supposedly do all that, but that's just something to keep in mind.
Well, I think the easiest thing for them to do would be to make sure that there was a very clean and seamless interface between, say, Helpful Village and QuickBooks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In
So,
QuickBooks or something?
yeah, well, or whatever, but
Yeah.
just using that as an example.
How much do those software packages cost? A Helpful Village or Run My Village? How much does it cost to get those?
It
I can tell
depends
you,
on the-
like Club Express, for example, the simplest version is you have a startup fee, and it's in the $900 range, but that's a one-time fee. And they have a lot of training, free training and everything. And then they charge by your active members of with a minimum of at only 20 cents per month per member, but with a minimum of, I think, is $50 a month. So that's Club Express, Run My Village. I don't know, I've forgotten what Helpful Village is.
Helpful Village we use with 200 members. Again, the price will vary just slightly month to month, depending on the number of members we have. But it's running about 240 a month.
Yeah.
And again, it's our web platform too. It performs it's kind of when people go to the web, they come in through Helpful Village.
But if you
The
have,
Helpful-
As
the Helpful
Margie
Village
or
was-
Susan could,
No,
as Margie or Susan could say, Helpful Village has a $3,000 startup fee.
Right.
So that's the big jumping point. And after that, it's $1 per member per month with a $50 minimum.
Mhm.
Depending on how you count members, you can figure that out. But that's they also will count volunteers or people who have access to the
Right.
site as what they would call members, depending whether they are what you call members or not.
So I encourage you to also look at Club Express. I think it's a little less expensive. It's a little further on. On the other hand, the good thing about Healthful Village, it is more expensive, but Manuel, who owns and runs and created it, is absolutely dedicated to continuing to improve it. He's partnering, with the DC villages on this data issue. So get pricing from both of us. Wave, I mean, I'll tell you, we estimated we're buying a slightly more expensive package, but then we think our monthly fee is only going to be $60 a month.
Hmm.
So if you don't have a whole lot of members, and that's something to consider. And that's Club Express.
Thank you for that info.
So we have like, 7 more minutes here before we hit noon. And we've still got time therefore for a whole new discussion if somebody wants to initiate it. Or we can, start getting our lunch ready.
Yeah.
Well, what I would ask is that you all think of other WAVE sessions on our Zoom program that are all like this. They're all just facilitated discussions of give and take and learn and share. And so are there other topics, non-financial? We've already said we're happy to help you with financial once you get past your immediate, DC needs. But are there other types of issues that you would like a discussion just like this for us to host? And you have my email in several places, but it's MJD. I'll put it in the chat once more. I'd love to hear that. There we go. I think that's right. There we go. Okay, so there's my email.
Well, Ross, thank you for it was your comments in the beginning of the session that got this group together and that I think spurred a good discussion. So thank you for taking the time to do that.
Yes.
Glad to do it.
Agree. Thank you very much.
And thanks to
Yes,
everybody
I
else.
really look forward to getting together with the other, at least 2 nonprofits and soon and talking about this. After all, the 990 is due on May 15th.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan.
Okay.
I plan on sending you an email. Well, I put it in the chat, but I plan on sending you an email quickly. No, this is a real issue for us. And I've been treasurer since the get-go, and whoever brought up about finding a treasurer, I guess it was you, Holly. We're having trouble finding a new one too. And you do, first of all, you need more than one set of eyes, but also burnout.
And I really think that's where it's like what Bill was saying earlier. It's a discussion that Bill and I have had here several times over the last year or so, is trying to put some effort this year into actually making this thing to where we can pass it off to somebody and be honest with them about what they're getting. Here's the system, here's what you have to do, here's the key dates, they're locked in, here's how you have a backup. I mean, that's been something I've been struggling with, is just to get an email address and a phone number that's discrete from mine that I can use on these damned accounts, so I can pass it off to somebody else and not have everything be tied specifically to me, that I have to reach in and do everything. But I mean, to me, and what I think the benefit of having some dialogue about all this is to get the systems nailed down and in place. So, there's a level of comfort for everybody. And when you're actually recruiting somebody, you can say, this is what it is. Because I took over from our previous treasurer who did a good job, but didn't like the job at all. and was very vocal about not liking it. And we got into this situation, and a month after I was in, the pandemic hit. So we were trying to do all our pass offs by telephone and email. And it took me about 1.5 years to get to where I actually felt really comfortable with what I was doing. And so I'd like to make sure that we get that nailed down so that, you know, next year sometime somebody picks us up and they're not having to be on the phone with me every 20 minutes to figure out what's going on. Yeah.
Can you just describe what you mean by nailed down? Is this something, a piece of paper that I'm going to be able to look at, or that people are going to be able to look at and say, okay, step 1, this is what you do.
Yeah, a
Step 2,
process.
this is what you
That's
do.
right. I mean, I think it's by nailed down, I mean a process that's
Okay,
clearly understandable and followable, so that it's you know, and so you have those spreadsheets with the passwords or whatever, or you know, but we have something that's a system that somebody can look at and say, yeah, that's a definable system that's got process in it that I don't have to reinvent every time I go through this kind of thing.
that'd be super. That would be just super.
How many
We can work
people
on
on
it
this
together.
call? How many people on this call are from villages outside of DC? Robert, what's your village?
College Park, Maryland.
Where is it?
College Park, Maryland.
College Park. So it's mostly DC, and you're Maryland, I'm Virginia. Okay.
Well, I think the other thing too is we've thought about is, you know, we've all got DACL money. And if we need to, you know, and DACL money will pay for QuickBooks, DACL money would pay for a consultant, you know, and what better use of that money than to make sure we can account for it in the grants in the future.
Exactly.
So, you know, and again, you know, I mean, it's been educational for me because I realize everybody's in the same boat, which I didn't think they were, but yeah. I was actually hoping against hope somebody else would come into the system and say, here it is.
Is there,
Dream
I
on.
wonder if there's a place we can go to hire financial people, you know, like a specific professional, you know, site that.
Well,
job site.
the thing is that we don't have the volunteers. I mean, it's me
Yeah.
and one other person. We don't have the volunteers to spend the time with
No.
TechSoup in their training for QuickBooks. I want to just hire somebody
Right.
to transfer us. We have 6 years of transactions, which I can get from our current accounting system and blast them into QuickBooks, but I don't want to do it. And, you know, I need a suggestion of somebody to hire to get that done.
There's
Yeah.
got to be a site where.
And transfer us to QuickBooks. And we
Who are
talked about it, and
professional.
I'm pretty sure that we already bought the QuickBooks online, which is probably sitting, you know, unused. So who transitioned you from wherever you were or nowhere to QuickBooks? Or is that, maybe it was easier because it was your first foray into, you know, an accounting system?
Who are you asking?
I'm asking, I guess, Mount Pleasant.
Well, we
'cause
have,
they're in QuickBooks.
well, our the treasurer prior to me, the first treasurer did everything herself, had a good accounting background, used something different than QuickBooks. The treasurer, then my predecessor,
Transition.
switched over to QuickBooks, hired a bookkeeper who the bookkeeper makes all the QuickBook entries for us now.
Yeah. Oh,
And so we actually have a history, all our history loaded up on QuickBooks. I just don't do it myself, or another volunteer doesn't do it, does not, or
it's
perform.
mine, but it's
Which
mine.
which I actually think, when I listen to all this, it would probably be easier if I was just putting the transactions in directly into QuickBooks. Bill could take a look at it hit a button once a week and everything, his review's done and everything moves off.
Right.
So I think that's
It would
probably
be-
going to be our next step.
And for something else that I do, I keep an online, if you would, check register, which has all of the transactions in it,
Yeah,
because you want to have your obligated money as well as your cleared money. And I believe that those spreadsheets should be importable directly into
Mhm.
QuickBooks
yeah,
every
I'm
month.
sure they would be.
So, you know, and keeping an online spreadsheet call it a check register, that's exactly what it
Yeah.
is really very simple, particularly for those of us who do, you know, 15 transactions a month. It's just not that big a deal. And
Yeah.
that can go directly into QuickBooks. But as I said, I want I don't have the time, you know, I want somebody else to do this. Also, I don't know QuickBooks. So
Yeah.
I really think you want to have somebody who knows what you're getting into.
Yes.
I just wanted to say, do you think QuickBooks have people who can help?
I think
You know what I would-
TechSoup has people.
May I make a suggestion here? I think maybe we ought to kind of go through our questions, then Bill and I can set up another session.
Yeah, that's good.
And
You're
I
right.
think that maybe we can go kind of, and I think we're probably going to need more than just one session,
Yeah.
you know?
That's
But I
true.
mean, if we do a couple hits, like an hour, and then, you know, everybody take a breath, and then we do, and we divide up assignments, and then we come back and we do it that way. I think we'll get there. You know, and I actually we haven't made a survey of our, one of the things I've been thinking about was making a survey of our membership and saying, you know, do we have somebody here that really knows QuickBooks that's willing to work with us for a while so we can set this up?
Yeah, the odds are the answer is yes. Yeah.
And the odds are the answer is yes. And, you know, and then make the transition that way. You know, and because I've been trying to figure out a way, pardon the use of this expression, but to spread the pain here a little bit of, you know, how do we get some other people involved in this so we can get it moving?
Although when there's money involved, you really, you know, you need a tight.
No, I agree, but I think it's really, you know, if you've got to set the reviews up and everything else, but at the same point in time, looking for some internal expertise that can help us get, you know, do the startup at least.
It's really funny, by the way, with the DACL grant, it's my understanding that a whole lot of the grantees just use it for existing staff. And so their submissions to Denise, I mean, mine are, I make anywhere between an 18 and a 30-page PDF that I send every week.
That's me. Yeah.
You know, with the invoice and the canceled
Payment,
check,
yeah.
whatever it is, right? And you know, I'm very efficient at it, and it's not that big a deal. But it's really funny because the smaller of us have much more work to do than the bigger of them, because all they do is pay their staff
Right.
with the DACL money.
I was hoping Jonas was on for a second. He could have commented on that, but he's disappeared again.
Yeah.
So,
You know, and I don't know that there's any way particularly automated other than, I mean, I consider it automation that I get pictures of the check from the bank.
right.
Yeah.
To keep pictures of the check. So.
Well, listen, we probably should run because it is now
Yeah.
6 minutes past 12, but this has been great. And Mary Jo, I see you've reappeared.
I just reappeared because we didn't want to cut you off. We wondered, everybody else has gone home and your party is still going strong. So I can see there's a lot of glue that has developed, you know, between you. So no, thank you all to Ross and to Bill and to Margie for sharing, and then Holly for your questions, and Diane and Bob. So everybody, and remember, so we will definitely look at that transition to QuickBooks Online. That sounds like a very good.
Ross and Bill, I'll send you an email right away so we can set up a meeting.
Sounds
Sounds
good.
good.
Okay, thank you so much. That would
Okay.
really would be wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. It was nice seeing
Thank
you
you.
all.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
You too.
Oh,
Well, our group
it said
identified.
recording in
uh,
progress.
Our group identified insurance, like insurance came up a few times in our discussion. And so, Mary Jo popped in there at the end and she was saying, hey, we'd love to get your ideas for the next meeting, future meetings. And then we brought up insurance and we had several people nodding their head like, yep, I'm very interested in insurance, a discussion about that. So I think we have our next meeting. The topic anyway.
See, I think I told you before I popped back into room one is that they want a Zoom session on transitioning to QuickBooks for very small villages that are using, very simple accounting practices or bookkeeping practices. So I promised Bill's online. I promised Bill we'd definitely do that for one of our Zoom sessions.
We're setting up a whole new side conversation with small villages that want to figure that stuff
There
out.
is, by the way, there is a training for that on TechSoup.
TechSoup,
And I
yeah,
think it's
that's
$50.
okay.
So just FYI, if you are going to be doing something like that, or maybe we can offer it to them. I saw that because I was multitasking when they mentioned it. So you can also have different people. I don't know how many people that purchase can bring on, but that might be something that could be offered.
That's
And
good.
I wonder if there's a video version of that, so Wave could, buy a one-time,
Yeah.
tutorial,
Text
if there's a video version, and then people who needed to really adopt it for their own, might be able to come up with the money.
And for $50 is not much at all. So if you count for the time that, you volunteers would have to do for it, let me look it just up again. Let me look up. Anyway, so what else came out of that? So anyway, you guys can look up TechSoup.
I've got to run, I'm afraid, but
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bill. It was a good session.
Okay.
good, everybody. It worked well.
I'm going to jump off too. It seems like